Off the coast of northern France, beneath dark waters of the Bay of the Seine, lie shattered wrecks of the D-Day fleet, the largest maritime invasion force in history. Join the Sea Hunters as they voyage to the beaches of Normandy and explore the undersea remains of the battle that breached Hitler's fortress Europe and began the final chapter of World War II. With over 100 million books in print, Clive Cussler is the Grand Master of shipwreck tales and adventure. Director of the Vancouver Maritime Museum, James Delgado is one of the world's foremost marine archaeologists. Introduced to diving at an early age, Warren Fletcher is a professional diver and underwater cameraman capturing images around the globe. Leading the Econova dive team, Mike Fletcher has coordinated shipwreck searches all over the world. Together, they explore the planet's last frontier in search of true adventures with famous shipwrecks. They are the Sea Hunters.
When we think about the Allied troops that lost their lives during the Normandy campaign, we tend to focus on the beach landings. That moment when the landing craft doors opened and soldiers rushed out onto booby-trapped beaches, machine gun fire cutting down troops, survivors desperately seeking shelter where there was none. Often, however, we fail to recognize that many died before reaching land. Enemy fire, mines, and other obstacles, even storms and heavy seas, all had deadly consequences. For those brave souls who never saw French soil, the ocean is their graveyard. This is their often untold story, a sea hunter's investigation of sunken remains that speak of their sacrifice and help tell a more complete story of the D-Day invasion.
Hello, I'm Clive Cussler. At the beginning of 1944, Adolf Hitler's Nazis had a firm foothold on continental Europe. Thousands of kilometers of coastline had been fortified to repel an Allied invasion of the mainland. Joseph Stalin, the leader of the Soviet Union, had been pressuring the Allies to mount a Western front in Europe to help take pressure off the Soviets' Eastern Front. In 1942, a disastrous attempt was made to invade the port town of Dieppe. The Allies, and in particular the Canadians, suffered heavy casualties. An unfortunate lesson was learned. If an invasion were to be successful, it would have to be substantially larger and more sophisticated than Dieppe.
That invasion, commonly known as D-Day, was originally codenamed Operation Overlord. This massive Allied invasion of Europe began in the pre-dawn darkness of June 6, 1944. While Allied bombers in massive numbers pounded the German coastal defenses, the largest armada in modern history, over 6,000 landing craft and naval vessels, had set out from England. Crammed inside were 5 infantry divisions, each assigned a code-named section of Normandy's coastline to attack and conquer. The Americans would storm Utah and Omaha beaches. The British, Gold and Sword. For the Canadians, Juno was the target.
Now travel with the Sea Hunters as we dive the broken debris of a battlefield that remains hidden beneath the murky waters.
The mission begins at Canada's largest Navy base in Halifax, Nova Scotia.
Scott.
With a visit to one of Mike's longtime colleagues, Lieutenant Scott Moody. The Navy will conduct a side-scan search of the waters off the Canadian D-Day landing zone of Juno Beach.
This is Ron Clark. He's my senior analyst for this mission.
And I take it that's got to be the contract.
That's it. It's signed by the Staff Officer Operations on behalf of the Admiral, and you sign on page 3.
Well, guys, let me tell you how pleased the Sea Hunters are to be working with the Canadian Navy.
This is the first survey of Juno Beach area. Not just Canadian Navy's involvement, but It's the first ever side-scan sonar survey?
I've heard that, Ron, and it's a shame it wasn't done before now, but it doesn't matter because now what we're going to do is create a scientific baseline. Starting from this day forward, that will be a record of what's out there. So we've already made arrangements to meet with an individual, and with any luck, he'll have us diving even before you guys get there.
Jim, Warren, and Mike depart Canada and rendezvous in Paris, France. From Paris, they drive west to the English Channel and the coast of Normandy. Their first stop is at Lons-sur-Mer, near Gold Beach. These massive guns are a stark reminder of the strength of the Nazi defenses and the horror that faced the D-Day troops on that bloody day. Imagine German machine gun fire raining down on the beaches. Think of shells exploding as the landing craft dropped their troops in waist-deep water, and still other landing craft grounded and helpless, impaled on the deadly underwater traps, exploding mines ripping out their bottoms. Through massive numbers and sheer determination, they managed to overcome near impossible odds. Somehow, the D-Day landings would still succeed.
So this is Hitler's infamous Atlantic Wall?
Well, not just a wall, but a whole fortification to stop our counter-invasion by the Allies. Hitler had taken France and he wasn't about to give it up again.
And it took 4 years to build, and it fell in less than a day.
Built with forced labor and the occupied French.
The most incredible thing is that on that day, an intense naval bombardment, aerial bombardment as well, just hit this coast, and yet only 14% of the gun positions were put out of action.
So that means when the Allies landed on the beach, really the front line was still intact?
Yeah.
The Sea Hunters' home base will be the quaint village of Ouistreham on Sword Beach. Their local dive liaison is Yves Marchelon.
Thank you. Merci.
Merci, monsieur.
I've got 5.
Number 1.
All right. Hey.
Oh, you must be Mike.
I am, yes.
Hello, nice to meet you.
Hi, and you're Eve, obviously. My son, Warren.
Hi, Warren.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Now, we don't expect the Canadian Navy and the experts with the side scan equipment to arrive until probably sometime tomorrow. So, Warren, I'll take care of the bags if you wouldn't mind Eve taking Warren and getting him started with the equipment.
Okay.
All right?
I'll show you the whole gear.
You want to go right now then?
Yeah, let's go.
All right, see you in a bit.
See you in an hour.
See you later.
All right.
Yves' dive locker is a converted German bunker, once part of Hitler's Atlantic Wall. A bunker that at one time housed German soldiers, now, ironically, serves as an equipment storage area for the French dive club, Can Plongée.
And for you?
This isn't your dive locker, is it?
That's a bunker, yeah.
It's a German bunker.
It's been built by the German there.
Oh, this is really cool.
Yeah, a bit more than 60 years ago. Let's get in.
This just opens? Okay. Wow, this is very interesting. Those are thick walls. I wouldn't want to hit my head on that.
Oh, very thick walls here, 4 meter wide.
See the hinges, big old door.
This used to be the room to rest for the German guys when they were there.
Okay. Yeah, when it was a bunker, they'd come sleep in here.
Yeah, eat, sleep, and do everything they had to do.
So they lived right here?
Yeah.
Wow.
Here's the compressor.
Oh, yeah. Nice bower?
Yeah, it's a big one. It's 22 cubic meter. This place used to be the place where the gun was.
Right.
You could survey the bay from up there, from everywhere, you know.
Right.
And it was a really big gun. And we changed the meaning of the room.
Yeah.
And, well, you've got gasket here. We fill our tanks with that very quickly.
It's a good system. It doesn't take up
it
much
is.
space.
Yeah, it
Oh,
is.
you've got a great setup here for sure.
Thank you. I hope you're happy with it.
Oh, it's excellent. Let's go dive.
And how far are we from shore, Eve?
Maybe 3 miles from the shore. Are you ready, Mike?
I'm ready.
I got it now. You can drop it.
We got it?
Yeah.
As we dropped down into the murk, I could see our target. The water was darkened by the silt that had been stirred up by the rush of the previous incoming tide. As we moved closer, it was obvious that this target was no larger than the boat that we had just dove from. There were machine gun bullets and small personal effects everywhere. This wasn't a ship or even a landing craft or any sort of vessel that I normally associated with the D-Day invasion. There it was, sitting alone and forlorn on the bottom. It was a tank. What kind remained to be seen. The Allies used several different types. I knew Jim would have the answer, but that would have to wait till we got to the surface to find out. Suddenly the tide began to move in, and in minutes the current was flowing at more than a knot and steadily increasing. Our dive window was closing in. It was time to get out of there.
So, what kind of tank was it?
I think it's a Sherman.
They did outfit Shermans with the canvas.
Yeah, the
location.
Sherman DD type tank, and they just launched those off those landing craft, and they'd come in, just absolutely stunned the Germans to see tanks floating in and coming in from the sea.
Yeah.
That's very
All
cool.
the Allies used the Shermans?
Yeah, they issued them to Canadian troops. British had some. The Americans, of course, used them.
Because they made them.
Yeah, exactly. America, remember, was the great arsenal of democracy. The Americans were manufacturing landing craft, tanks, all sorts of things, and contributing that to the Allied war.
So, whatever the tanks did, a lot of that evidence of that's still on shore. We can go and look at it on the beach.
Yep, so why don't we head on in?
Yeah.
The diving here in France was relatively easy compared with what the sea hunters have done in the past. At less than 100 feet, we're well within the air range, which means little or no decompression and not having to utilize mixed gas. However, Mother Nature does throw us one twist.
The twist that Warren spoke of was the extreme tide. If he continued to sit there on that dock, the tide would eventually rise until his feet were nearly in the water. Imagine the rush of that water flowing over the seabed as it flooded towards the French coast. And imagine the effects that that water would have on a diver trying to stay stationary on a wreck. We'd have to consider the tides. There was lots of exciting diving ahead, and obviously we were going to have to plan those dives carefully.
The sea hunters begin their exploration on the D-Day landing zones. This was an opportunity to investigate firsthand the German army's tactical advantage. The Nazis had long known that an attack was imminent. They couldn't know exactly when or where, but with a clear line of sight to the sea, they would spot the Allies coming. There would not be an element of surprise. A heavily layered line of defense extended well out into the sea, combined with an unobscured line of fire, meant that the amphibious troops would be sitting ducks for the waiting German defenders. The Canadian landing at Juno Beach was one of several areas where this bloody worst-case scenario unfolded. During the first hour, the chances of being killed or wounded on this part of Juno Beach were close to 50%.
Here's the house.
This is the house that was liberated by the Queen's Own Rifles.
This may very well have been the first house on French soil to be liberated by seaborne Allied forces.
Okay.
100, maybe more than 100 Canadians wounded or killed right here within sight of the house, trying to make this beach.
Well, the Allies landed at about 7:55, I guess it was, Jim, on June 6th, 10 minutes after H hour.
Yeah, and the tide back then wasn't much different from what we see today.
In terms of it, the exposed beach and high and low tide.
The Germans had gun positions. They had mines buried in the sand. They had obstacles out there, including wooden poles set in the sand with mines on the ends that would blow the bottom out of a landing craft. This obstacle course meant that that surf line was a killing zone.
Yeah.
Further up the beach, the trio locate a Sherman tank preserved as a monument. This tank is similar to the one they had dove on.
This is the amphibious tank. It's very similar.
Yeah, I mean, in particular, I remember floating and holding onto this barrel right here and looking back And this shape, that's the same shape.
I think there was some small differences. Like, I agree that the turret and the gun and everything are the same, but I just see some very small differences. I thought it was more square.
We took our tank dive follow-up investigation one step further by visiting the Museum of Invasion Shipwrecks in Port-au-Bassin, operated by a diver named Jacques Lemonchois. Jacques had been hired by the French government to clear harbors of war vessels. He made thousands of dives and recovered a huge collection of D-Day artifacts. In one display case, he had items taken from a submerged tank that was similar to the one that we had dove on.
This all came out of a Sherman DD.
That's the tank commander or operator?
Look, here's some of his personal papers.
Right.
Here's a list of the guys that were in that battalion.
Look at there, even some cigarettes.
And all of this stuff actually came out of the tank in the water. It's hard to believe.
Well, this case too over here. Let's go take a look at that one.
Cigarettes, huh? The cigarettes make it up.
And the paperwork must have been in a leather bag to protect it
Or
from...
sealed, and probably sealed in mud.
Okay.
Yeah, it must have been.
Look at that, it's a Thompson submachine gun.
And
45?
all kinds of guns.
Wow.
Well, look at even his personal stuff, like his shaving kit,
Razor, yeah.
his sunglasses.
Well, this is why we were seeing those bullets as well. These guys, not only for their machine guns, but they had all sorts of other weapons.
Well, and they had personal stuff on there. These tanks were their homes, right? There's got to be a parallel between the tank that we dove on and this tank that was found with all these personal and identifiable items. Makes a connection from the war right back to the individual.
The tank we dived on may be another time capsule just like this one.
The next morning, the Canadian Navy side-scan team arrives in Ouistreham.
Hey, Mike! You couldn't have picked the worst time. The tide's right at its very lowest.
Well, that's good. It'll be ready at the same time as us.
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Ron? Now, I have to go back to the hotel and get the other guys.
I'll step right on, okay? C'est bon.
Scott, is that the last of the gear?
This is the last one that we need.
Okay, so we can hop on then? So Scott, you've got a screen that you can put up for the captain to follow? It'll be the same search area that you've got
Yes,
planned?
I've got a monitor up there, has all the lines in it.
Okay.
And all the wrecks that we know of so far.
Geez, how much does this baby weigh? Sure is big.
71 kilograms sitting on deck.
That's the biggest towfish I've ever seen.
That's a monster.
So I guess nothing to do now but settle in and get to our search area?
Yep.
Okay, I'm gonna find some sandwiches. See if we can get some coffee going.
Of the hundreds of potential targets that could be investigated, the group is focused in on the wreck of the HMS Lawford, arguably the most important vessel lost in the Juno Beach campaign. She was in effect the brain of the Canadian Navy's D-Day effort. Anchored offshore, she directed the coming and going of vessels and stood as a floating command post, coordinating the daunting task of landing troops and supplies.
Jim and Mike, we're coming up on the Lawford if you want to see it.
Oh yeah, good. Yeah. Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah.
Is it just starting to show up? So you're on the numbers, it should come up here anytime?
It should be coming up any time, and it'll come up on the starboard channel.
Okay.
There's more fish.
Oh,
yeah.
look at that. It's in 3 pieces.
Yeah, it's really broken up, isn't it?
Whoa.
Well, if it is, then that's the stern, right?
Yeah, no, that'd be the midship section right there.
Okay, and you're able to save them over here, Scott?
Yep, I've got the targets up so we can measure them.
Oh, that's definitely the bow.
You get a
Or
real
on its
sense of sort of what happened. When this thing got hit, looks like the midship section just blew and disintegrated, the stern swung around, sank, and the bow sort of, when the thing separated, the bow swung another way.
Yeah.
Wow.
It looks like it almost exploded from inside.
Well, it could have hit in an area around a magazine. That is just devastation.
So let's use this to try and plan our dive.
Yeah. Well, it looks like the bow is probably the most interesting piece.
It does. I'd like to dive that stern too, though.
On the stern, you've got the rudder.
Yeah.
And
You
looks
can
like a shaft.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to diving this. This looks like a real interesting one.
The side scan information provides the sea hunters with a detailed map of the ocean floor and the nature of Lawford's broken remains. The next step will be an examination of the wreck by the dive team.
Look there at the bow, though.
But that will have to wait for tide change
Looks like it.
and a quick trip back to shore.
The towfish that Scott's using for the Navy now, it's just amazing how much faster they can cover ground now with their side scans.
Yeah, for sure. Check out the eel. Look at that. Before all that technology, it was these fishermen who were finding all the shipwrecks.
Oh, for sure. The guys that collect this stuff on the bottom of the sea, I mean, they're the ones finding the wrecks.
Sure, nobody knows the bottom of the ocean like the fishermen do.
No, that's for sure. Look like smelt. Eel was. Oh, look, it's still alive. They are. They're smelt, right? Or they're like smelt.
They're not smelt, no.
What do they call them? Eel wives? Poor guys are still alive. Now that's fresh fish.
Monsieur, je peux manger? Oui, oui. Yeah, oui. Bon, c'est bon.
With the success of the first side scan day behind them, the team decides to split up into two groups. Good luck! The sea hunters head to the Lawford site. Meanwhile, the Navy side scan team sweeps another section of Juno Beach. Their main mission today will be to locate an intact landing craft. If the Lawford was the brain controlling the Juno Beach activity, then the landing craft was the muscle.
Okay, here it goes. So 100-foot table, we'll call it, guys. And any idea, Eve, is this the bow or the stern?
You see the shaft at the stern.
Okay.
It's a good tip.
All right.
Okay, that's far enough. Line grip. Okay, let's run the line.
HMS Lawford was a command ship that coordinated landings of Canadian troops at Juno Beach on D-Day. After the landings, she took up command of coastal patrol activities along the northern boundary of the British assault sector. But Lawford herself became a victim. In the early morning hours of June 8, just 2 days after Operation Overlord began, a Luftwaffe aircraft slipped through the Allied defenses and dropped 500-pound or 226-kilogram bombs. The bombs hit amidships, punching through the decks and going off in the engine room. The blast doomed the ship, and she sank within minutes, taking 24 of her crew to the bottom. The destroyer escort's bow and stern protruded above the surface, marking her grave, and showed that the bombs had broken Lawford's back. Eventually, the entire wreck settled beneath the cold waters of the Baie de la Seine. The Canadian Navy side-scan sonar image of the wreck showed just how bad the damage was. We knew she'd been hit hard. The wreck lies in 3 pieces. The broken, twisted remains of the engine room and the detached bow and stern show how the blast and sinking tore Lawford apart. But it was our dives that graphically illustrated the devastation of the bomb's blast. The destroyer escort is a tangled ruin of twisted metal, with only the bow giving you any real sense of what she once looked like. The bow-mounted anti-aircraft gun is still in place, and ironically, it's still in its stowed position, not ready for action. That gun is a reminder of how much the fatal attack was an early morning surprise. The broken hulk of Lawford gave me some sense of her last few minutes. The wreck was also yet another reminder for us that Operation Overlord's casualties extended well out to sea and beyond the events of June 6th.
As the sea hunters head for the surface, the Navy zeroes in on a great target in the heart of the submerged battlefield.
Hi.
There it is.
There we go.
Okay, let me.
Nice.
There we go.
Good
Looks
shape.
like the ramp is
Yeah.
either down or missing. And if we measure it,
Okay, you want to do a north-south on it now?
yeah, we should turn around and do it again. Maybe we'll come around and go by it.
The landing craft were extremely important, not only on that first day, but throughout the entire campaign, to the end of the war, carrying not only troops, but everything that went to shore, from food, fuel, and ammunition to heavy weapons, medical supplies, even building materials and machinery to construct roads and bridges.
See how tall this one end here seems pretty hot off the bottom. We've got a really good shadow.
Yeah.
Look at that, it's 2.7 meters off the bottom. There's lots of scouring around it. Looks good. They're gonna like this one.
It's really blown apart, isn't it?
Oh, what a violent death for that ship. Just think about it on that morning, this now empty sea just filled with thousands and thousands of ships heading in towards that beach. It had to have been just an incredible sight, and in rougher seas than this.
Oh, for sure. Well, I don't know, guys. I'd like to try and get another dive in today. What's the next tide?
Well, the next time to dive will be around 9 o'clock tonight.
That'll be after dark?
Yeah, be around dark.
Yeah. And you don't like to dive?
While the Navy continues to side scan, the sea hunters head to shore and to the Juno Beach Center.
You know, guys, this isn't just about Canada's experience in the Normandy landings. This tells the story of Canada's involvement in the war in Europe. Dieppe, arguably Canada's darkest day in World War II.
Yeah, as awful as it was, though, the Allies really learned a lot of important lessons from that raid on Dieppe.
Namely, you don't try and take a fortified harbor. If you're going to make a landing, get away from population, find a place where there's a long sloping beach, and hit that beach with as much firepower as you can. Pound the heck out of it. And then when the men land, support it again, both from the air and from the sea, more bombardment.
It's somewhat controversial, but what Mountbatten said was that for every life lost at Dieppe, 10 were saved at Normandy.
Those lessons learned at Dieppe were not wasted. The Allies created an entire new strategy for the D-Day landings. Once the beaches were secured, the Allies needed to bring large amounts of materials ashore. These materials would help supply and reinforce the army as it pushed forward through France and into Germany. They constructed a harbor on the shores of Arromanches at Gold Beach.
Well, and Arromanches, after D-Day, became a harbor as big as Dover.
I thought that they sunk ships out there as a breakwater.
Well, if you look out just on the edge of the horizon, you can see all those concrete portions making up what would have been a harbor. The harbor is a naturally occurring body of protected deep water. They didn't have one here, so they had to create it. They sunk the concrete pontoons along with derelict ships. Now they had a wall, a natural defense against the sea that would allow access for deeper drafted ships in a protected area. They learned their lesson in Dieppe. They couldn't capture a harbor, so they'd make one. And that's just what they did. They built a harbor.
In addition to the concrete breakwaters, they also had floating breakwaters called bombardons. There's one right there in the surf. And then they had these things they called beetles. They're floating pontoons onto which a roadway like this would sit, so that you could run supplies right off these ships onto the beach, regular stream going. When they landed here, they had to form a beachhead where they could land the millions of tons of supplies, munitions, and equipment that they needed, as well as all of the men, so they could push on through onto the road to Paris.
Sure, so the beach essentially would become the staging area for all the equipment they needed to take France back.
And these prefabricated docks or roadways became that conduit that offloaded ships now onto trucks could move inland.
When you think about it, it's an incredible engineering feat, and all done and planned in advance and built within a matter of a few days.
It's amazing, really.
The landing of soldiers on the beaches was only the first step in the D-Day campaign. These soldiers broke a hole in Hitler's Atlantic Wall. Over the months that followed, countless tons of material poured through that hole. All of the components essential to creating a war machine that would push across France and into the heart of Europe. The workhorse behind that movement was the landing craft.
Guys, how was your day?
Hey, excellent day.
Yeah?
And we've got the landing craft for you. We got a beautiful image. Come take a look at this.
Well, that's real clear.
We've got a really good position on it.
Wow.
Couldn't be any clearer than that.
No. What do you make of it, Jim?
Well, it's the right size for a number of craft, Mike. I mean, what's your scale on this, Scott? I mean, what are we? What's your length on it?
It's about 30 meters long and 6 or 7 meters wide.
Now, it looks like it has a drop-down door, gate. Is that on the bow or is that the stern?
Well, it could be the stern, Mike. I mean, remember, there's several thousand landing craft here, you know, during the Battle of Normandy.
So this could be any one of those.
Could be any number of landing craft. I think we're just going to have to go dive it, take a look.
The Sea Hunters now have an intact landing craft. But the question is, what's inside? With slack tide approaching, the Sea Hunters head out to dive the landing craft target.
Okay, 49.
Put this in the tide chart, Eve. What do we expect to see on bottom?
Talking to Eve, it looks to be a landing craft, which fits the parameters for that kind of craft.
Right.
Silty bottom, stands up about 3 meters off the bottom, and they think that there's equipment inside, metallic objects, it says, so.
Very interesting.
So I think this is a perfect dive to follow up what we've been doing with the Lawford. I mean, from the command ship, wrecks that are telling more and more of the story of just what happened here on June 6th.
The Canadian Navy had supplied two important targets, the command ship Lawford, and now this small landing craft. While we were diving, they would continue with an overall survey and cover as much of the Juno area as time would allow. Who knows what they might find? Because I had seen the side scan image, I knew even before we reached the bottom that this was a small target. There was no point in the divers staying within eyesight of one another. It meant we had the freedom to really wander and explore around. Not like a really large naval vessel where you could actually get turned around and lost. Here we had the luxury to spread out and go in our own directions. And that was important because we hoped to investigate and cover as much of the area as possible. We had a limited bottom time dictated by the tide. Once I moved inside, I found an odd assortment of something. Whatever they were, they seemed to be stacked on edge and lying parallel, one beside the next. And then I realized, of course, these were sections of portable roadway, like the ones that we had stood on back in Arromanches. As we overlooked the harbor, here was cargo that was intended to be dropped off on the beach. It brought home the idea that these vessels weren't only for carrying people, they were here for carrying materials and the things that would be needed in the invasion once they got to shore. Looking further, we found machine gun cartridges, which led me to think of one of two things. Either this vessel was carrying ammunition, or it had a gun, and at some point it may have been firing on the enemy. Just more evidence of how the ferocity of the killing zone increased as the vessels approached the beaches.
Wow, I mean, we're seeing so much stuff on the bottom. I mean, every aspect of the invasion. Did you see that whole collection of machine gun shells?
Yep. Yeah, for sure. You didn't see a gun anywhere, did you, Jim?
No.
Okay, I thought you were signaling that you saw a gun. I guess you were saying you saw ammo.
I saw ammo. They haven't quite figured out a diver sign yet for ammunition on this wreck.
So would they have been carrying ammo to the troops, or was that...
Every one of these things would be armed.
Okay.
Sure,
Everybody would have, you'd have to. I mean, you wouldn't know if there's a plane, if there'd be a plane coming out of the sky or an enemy craft. You don't want to be a sitting duck.
No.
You know what I'm thinking as I'm looking at that stuff there? It's roadway or it's a bridge. To help them, once they get on that beach, I had to push on to Berlin. So this is literally kicking the door open into Hitler's fortress Europe.
Uh-huh.
The landing craft were essential to the success of D-Day. But before they could even begin their initial task of landing troops on the beaches that first morning, the Allied forces were in the pre-dawn sky over Fortress Europe. Thousands of paratroopers were dropped, and silent gliders landed just inland from the beaches. Their primary mission was to target the bridges. While some were destroyed, others were secured and purposely kept open.
Behind us, Pegasus Bridge.
Yeah, a pretty important spot. All of these bridges on the Caen Canal and the Orme River, absolutely important and a target for the 6th Airborne. British and Canadian paratroopers and glider troops who came in to seize all of these key points. Further to the west, the Canadians were blowing up bridges to block access to the Germans. Here, the British were taking charges that the Germans had set to keep this bridge open. The idea was you wanted to control access. You didn't want the Germans coming in from north to south, east to west. You wanted to keep lines of communication open, but they had to hold this eastern flank. That was absolutely critical to the success of the D-Day operation.
Well, I can see that if they could control these bridges, then this water course represented a barrier that the Germans couldn't breach to get at the advancing Allies. The Americans were to the west, the ocean was to the north. They had a natural corridor that they could now push towards Paris from.
Yeah. Do you know how Pegasus Bridge got its name?
No.
Well, Pegasus is the symbol for the 6th Airborne. It's on their patches, and so that's how the bridge gets its name.
But no doubt it had a French name before that.
Yeah, but I think because of those incredible events of June 6th and those very brave men, the French have honored that with this name. A reminder of what happened in the earliest hours of June 6th, followed hours later by the landings on the beaches.
From the picturesque village of Saint-Vaast-la-Hougue, Mike and Warren prepare for their westernmost dive in Normandy. Armed with coordinates for an American wreck provided by the U.S. Naval Historical Center, they head to Utah Beach.
Is that good?
Just like driving a farm tractor.
Woo! Yeah, you're good to go.
Put your mind in. Good to go.
Placid surface inside the breakwater hid the rough seas that lay in wait outside. The trip to the dive site wouldn't be an easy one.
You locked the van?
Yeah, it's all locked up. Oh, there's Jim.
Hey, Mike. Hey, Warren.
How you doing, Jim?
Good. How'd the dive go?
It was a challenge. It was rough out there. It took way longer than usual. We're crawling around long at like 8 knots, constantly checking the boat back as we crested over these big waves. We had no trouble finding the wreck, and the dive went really straightforward. There was no problems.
So what's the wreck?
It was pretty cool, actually. We dropped down, and I'm pretty sure it was on the bow, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's definitely some kind of landing craft for carrying tanks. And you could see as many as 4, maybe 6, or even 8 different tanks. The ship's completely upside down. And we landed near the bow because we found the hinging portion of the ramp, and then Warren found something really diagnostic.
Well, first we were diving on the bow section, and it was really pretty broken up. Then we got into the stern section, or possibly even the middle of the wreck. and you could see tanks lying all over the place. You could see the tracks, and the tanks were they were broken up pretty bad as well. And at the end of our dive, we were making our way back towards the down line. I looked down in the sand, and there was a big bomb halfway embedded in the sand. It was big. It was about 1.5 feet in diameter and about 4 or 5 feet long.
The tail fins have been busted off, but clearly a bomb just lying there half buried in the sand.
And do you guys think this thing was sunk by an aerial bombardment or something else?
We actually found an impact zone, really big hole. It was probably about 10 feet in diameter.
The edges that were curled in, yeah, they were probably 3 meters apart.
And this is on the bottom of the hull then?
Yeah.
Maybe on the turn of the bilge.
Yeah.
I wonder if that was a mine.
Yeah, that's what we kind of figured.
Definite implosion.
A torpedo would punch right through the hull, I guess, and explode from the inside. But you could obviously tell that the hull plate was curled in.
Jim was right. The Germans had filled the ocean with booby traps and submerged mines. That would explain the implosion that we found on the side of the wreck.
You've got some other things planned for us?
Yeah.
Okay. Give us 20 minutes, okay? All right.
With their dive window exhausted for the day, they turn inland and revisit the scene of an atrocity inflicted on prisoners of war, an event that led to one of the first World War II crime convictions in Europe.
Guys, I don't see a sign, but this has to be the Ardennes Abbey.
I've heard some pretty chilling stories about this place.
We're gonna go meet Jacques Vico. He was a French resistance fighter during the war. He's familiar with the dark history surrounding this place.
Jim, this was an abbey before the war?
It's a very old abbey, and with the French Revolution, it was closed, became a farm.
So why would the SS have taken it over? Why did they make this their headquarters?
Well, it's close to Cannes. Also, it's an elevated piece of ground, so from that church tower, the SS could see for miles. They could see down to Juno Beach, and they certainly saw the Canadians coming.
My mother was released from prison at the end of March 1944. 2 months after the liberation of Ardennes. This was the site of a battle. There was no roof left, no frame. The house had collapsed. All that was left were ruins. My mother had been there 8 days when a Canadian sergeant arrived, a tall, burly fellow. He told my mother he came back to Ardennes because some of his comrades had been killed at the Ardennes Abbey. Before the war, little white flowers would grow around the edges of the lawn. In March 1945, instead of growing around the edges, these little white flowers were growing everywhere on the lawn. My mother and my younger brother Michel said they, the Germans, disturbed the lawn and in the process separated the flower bulbs. They were trying to hide something. My younger brother Michel started digging a hole and immediately stumbled onto the corpse of a Canadian soldier. So now we know for certain that 20 Canadian soldiers were assassinated and buried in these grounds. The corpses were buried beneath the lawn on either side of the flower bed you see there. There was no flower bed at the time. There were some buried here and some between the chestnut tree and the rocket back. There were some on the other side of the chestnut tree, including one I found myself. The discovery of this killing field prompted one of the first war crimes convictions in Europe.
Why, in your estimation, why would these Canadians volunteer to fight a war that's not in their country?
When you talk to them, when you talk to the veterans, I remember a conversation with one of them whose comrades belonged to the Queen's Own Rifles of Canada in Toronto. He found the bodies of his comrades. He had come back for the 40th anniversary, and I asked him, "So, how do you feel 40 years later?" He answered, "You know, we volunteered. We were only 20. We had fire in our hearts and we were fighting for freedom. It gave us courage.
Scott.
Mike.
I think that's it.
Thanks, Mike.
Oh, thank you. Hey, Ron.
It's been great. I think we achieved all our objectives on this one. Found lots of things out there.
We don't get to do it very often. Historical research, especially military, you know.
It's Canadian Navy history. Who better to help tell it than the Canadian Navy? Good trip to Paris.
Thanks, Mike.
Take care. See you in Halifax.
Okay.
So I guess D-Day, it was really the beginning of the end for the Germans in World War II, wasn't it?
Between the landings and the closing of the Falaise Gap, the Germans suffered 450,000 casualties.
So what started with the landing on D-Day, 11 months later, the war in Europe was over.
You know what strikes me as we walk through this cemetery is how different it is from what we're diving on. This is peaceful. This is memory. It's commemoration. Down there is a battlefield unlike anything you would ever see on the surface. It's sunken, torn ships, lost tanks and landing craft. It's history that's raw. It's a very different view of the past than what we see here.
Even after the end of the Normandy campaign, countless more lives would still be lost before the Nazis finally surrendered. However, the actions by the Allied forces on D-Day were the first steps in the liberation of Western Europe and the freedom of millions of people. And now it's your turn to get up off that couch and go into the mountains, go into the deserts, go under the lakes, the rivers, and the seas, and search for history. You'll never find a more rewarding adventure.
Join us again as we search the oceans of the world for lost and famous shipwrecks. Another true adventure with the Sea Hunters.